Hey there, everyone. This is Amanda,
Hey, this is Rita.
and you're listening to I Don't Know Her, the podcast where we talk about women you've probably never heard of,
But you should have.
and now you will.
Alrighty.
Look how good we did that. So we were talking about things to talk about, and I was just taken aback this week because there was this comedy club / actor studio thing in New York that is in invite only. It's called like the Actors Hour.
Okay.
And these female comedians were getting up to do their sets in this little place. And none other in the audience is Harvey fucking Weinstein.
Gross.
And what was really disturbing about it is that, you know, one of the comedians on stage was like, hey, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the Freddy Krueger of my nightmares. Harvey Weinstein's here, everybody. And then like his table of cronies all booed at her, and people were like, shut up. And then later this other woman was like, you know, yelling directly at him, like at his table. And she was like, nobody's going to do anything about this. Nobody's going to do anything. And she got kicked out.
I can't believe that they were punished. Like, was she kicked out or were multiple kicked out?
She was kicked out, and then anybody who was supporting her or said anything to him was also kicked out. All women.
Did the show go on?
It did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's just atrocious.
The whole thing made me so fucking pissed.
And that he's got people that are still on his side. They probably the people that need him, people that don't care. They probably don't care.
No, they give zero shits.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea, just even the idea that you think that he's innocent is so astoundingly ignorant. I can't even wrap my brain around it. He's obviously not innocent.
Yeah. He's a monster.
There's like 87 people who've come forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a small amount.
No.
Oh my God. It's like people who think that Bill Cosby didn't do anything.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
Because they want their piece of cake, you know? The same thing with like Michael Jackson.
Oh,
I've been refusing to listen to his music anymore, and I'm just like not. But they're like, but it's Michael Jackson. Like, it's all the memory. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, the Michael Jackson one is really weird. People are really weird about that one.
Yeah.
Like Chrissy Teigen just tweeted about it like 2 days ago.
She did? What did she say?
Yeah, she said, you know, because like people who love Trump hate Chrissy Teigen because he has a personal vendetta against her on Twitter.
Yeah, he does. Because he's got nothing better to do.
Yeah, he doesn't have any jobs to do.
He doesn't have a country to run.
And so for whatever reason, you know, she's already got that crowd after her. And she made this tweet that was like, you know, you think those people are weird? The people who think Michael Jackson are innocent are fucking crazy. And then I like open up this tweet, and literally every reply are just Michael Jackson truthers.
Yeah.
And they are crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have them come after us now.
Well, it's just, like I said, they have their idol and something that has been part of the fingerprints throughout their lives. And they feel like if that's demonized, then that erases all of those good feelings and those good moments and good times. And well, are you fucking immature? So immature that you have to defend that? Like, be a grown up and stand up and say, no, that's not right and that's not okay. And I'm not going to support that anymore.
I think that the Weinstein one is so crystal clear.
Very.
Like, just don't invite him places. Don't invite him places. Don't support him. Like, I think the thing that makes me maybe a little bit like confused about him in particular is that there are a lot of really great movies that his company supported and helped make, and some of those movies are really important and were made by women and people of color. And like I just talked to Rita about this week is that I watched Frida for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And Salma Hayek wrote an incredible op-ed in the New York Times about what it was like to work underneath Harvey Weinstein to get that project made. And it totally colors the way that I view that film.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucks, but I'm so glad that movie was made. It's such an important film and such an important story, and Frida Kahlo is an important person.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't have gotten made if Salma Hayek hadn't gone to the ends of the earth and back to get it made.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason why she had to go to the end of the earth and back was because of Harvey Weinstein and what an asshole he was to her.
Yeah.
So I understand why people sometimes get like that. Well, you can't entirely throw away the art with the artist. I think that's true. You can't with everything. But don't invite him.
Yeah, don't keep supporting.
Don't invite him to, and it's the whole point of this particular thing that he was at was to support actors and artists. It's an invite only thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so he was invited.
He was invited by the person who put it on, who has denied inviting him.
Oh, then how the fuck is he on the list?
Exactly.
Like he just showed up and knocked on the door and, oh, sure, come on in.
And what's the advantage of having him there? He can't be making movies anymore.
No.
He doesn't, he's being bankrupted by the amount of lawsuits and legal bills he's piling up in.
Yeah, his world is crumbling.
Like, what is the advantage of having him there? He doesn't have any power or clout anymore, and the only way he would have power and clout is if you fuckers keep inviting him to shit.
Yeah.
Stop inviting him, ignore him, act like he doesn't exist because he shouldn't. He's canceled. We canceled him. The subscription is over. The world is
insane.
Yeah. It's not cool.
Yeah. I guess what really twists my stomach is the fostering of him. It's almost like they're trying to protect him.
Oh, absolutely.
It's when he should be in a cage.
The fact that they kicked out anybody who said anything to him or about him, that shows you right there where the priorities of the people involved in that place were.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there were still people who sat and stayed.
Yeah, that's shocking. If I saw that shit, I'd be like, I'm out. Because then if you make that stand and you show that, it changes people's minds. If you stay and you help support it, nothing's going to change.
Nope. And if the other artists at that show had refused to go on,
something might have happened.
I mean, the fact that there wasn't enough solidarity supporting the women who were calling it out, that really upset me. They got broader support on the internet after it happened and came to light that they were shouting him down, rightfully so. You know, one of them called this one woman a cunt.
Ooh.
Harvey Weinstein's spokesperson put out a statement saying that she was like, one of the women was a rude idiot or something.
Okay.
And it's just,
so they're all wrong.
And it's just like, what? I can't even fathom, like, who are you? Why are you supporting him? How is that in line with any set of good values?
I finally, I don't think I mentioned to you, I finally watched the documentary Surviving R. Kelly.
Oh my God.
I watched the whole thing at once because I felt like if I stopped, I wouldn't finish. And I felt like somebody told me like, oh, I started watching it and it was too much. And I couldn't do it. And I was like, well, I don't think those girls could do it either. Yeah. So all I can do is listen and see what I can do now with my actions. And it was the same thing. Like his ex-wife said, he wouldn't have been able to do as much as he's done and is still doing if he didn't have a team of people supporting him and helping him. Yeah. And the fans of just, he's innocent or whatever. He made a mistake. All the girls want him. It's like, no.
Yeah. The era of the monster needs to be over.
Yeah.
I declare it over. It's done.
Call it out. See something, say something.
And leave. Get out of the fucking room. If you know that somebody in that room has perpetuated or in some way been involved in sexual violence against somebody, walk out. Leave. Call it out. Just don't be a bystander who lets it continue to go on, because nothing will ever change. It will never get better for women, for people of color, for queer folks, for other marginalized identities, if we don't stick together and walk the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, right now too, like even in like the political scene, we're having a mayoral race right now, which is, it's a little scary that the woman who's running and her stance And my husband usually gets gigs through the mayor's office to do like public shows and stuff like that. And he's like, if she's elected, I'm turning it down. He's like, I know it's going to be good money, but I don't care. I don't support her and where she stands. I'm just not going to do it.
In the vein of honesty, I will say that I have had personal interactions with the other mayoral candidate, who's a man, and he can be extremely misogynistic.
He's intense.
Well, I've personally had experiences where I was like, you're awful.
Ooh.
So when he was originally going to run for Congress,
that's right.
I was asked to be part of I don't remember what he called it, like his women's exploratory committee or something like that. I don't even remember what it's called. But I was asked along with a few other women from the community. There's a Native American woman, a Black woman, and this woman I had not met before until this happened. And she is a white woman, straight, but she's a writer and she's a mother. She was literally very pregnant at the time.
Oh, okay.
And when we all met, it was in the vein of like, we support him, or at least some of them supported him. I was on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And we met, and the whole idea is that it all came about after he had completely fucked up and blundered with regards to women's issues in a women's venue that was being held for a group called Together We Can or something, or Together We Will. And he had not done well with the women. And so it was like, oh, you need to have more women on your campaign. So this unpaid woman who was sort of his campaign manager, she was not getting paid to do his work for him. She's the one who sat down and met with us. He didn't come.
Oh.
We were supposed to be there to help him and his campaign, and he refused to show up. We were asked to come by his campaign. He didn't show up, but instead let his unpaid campaign manager do the show for him. And it said a lot to me about his fucking priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And
how important is this to you?
And we've got a city councilwoman who has said outright that he has been demeaning to her, that he has blocked her in times. So, like, he's got his own set of issues.
Yeah.
This mayoral election that we're having in our city is problematic. It's very hard for me to vote for either of them. I'm obviously not going to vote for the Trump in a pantsuit. But I don't feel comfortable voting for the other candidate either. And I'm sure that there are people all over this country right now listening to this, and perhaps even all over the world, who are having a similar problem, where there are candidates for an important race and you don't like either of them.
And they don't represent you.
And they have nothing to do with your values.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one talks a good game, but in my personal experience, doesn't walk a good game. Mm-hmm. So I'm really struggling with what to do this time around, this election.
Yeah.
Marking his name on that ballot feels like a betrayal of my own morals and ethics.
I think you got your answer right there, if that's your statement.
But then if she wins because people did that, just like Trump won because lots of people didn't want to vote for Hillary, I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
Her plans for what to do with the homeless, her belief in over-policing, which would just lead to more people of color being brutalized, criminalized,
demonized.
Yeah. It's just not that. I can't live with either there.
Yeah.
So you're just put in a really terrible place. Oh. Rita, you should run for office.
I would not survive. I would kill so many people. Could I just do that? Could I just kind of kill my way up
to the top? Could it be the purge?
Could it be? I feel like it's going there.
If we could just have the purge and only politicians.
Yes. And eat the rich.
Eat the rich. Okay. Now that we've had that and gotten that out of our system. Okay. So I have a very fun story.
My lady's kind of a nasty lady.
Ooh, I want to hear about your nastiness first.
She's just kind of not nice. So my lady today is Ching Shih,
I do not know her.
China's ruthless pirate queen.
We have a pirate. We haven't had a pirate before.
We haven't had a pirate yet. So she was born with the name Shilganju in roughly around 1775. Her origins, like when we start getting into the 1700s, 1600s, is a little, they don't quite know when she was born, but definitely around this time. Jing grew up in the Guangdong province in southeastern China. On the waters there, she worked as a prostitute, and she worked on what they called flower boats, and they were basically floating brothels, and they would go up and down the waters, and then they would stop and take care of customers, and then they would go back on their boats, and then they would continue down the way.
That's kind of a cool idea.
It's very convenient.
I'm guessing because she was a prostitute at a young age, she probably came from a poor family.
Yes, I'm assuming. Yeah, I don't. I think she made a living on the streets for a little while, but there's only so much you can do, and so she went to prostitution. So around 1801, she encounters Jing Yat. He's a pirate commander of the notorious Red Flag Fleet, and he's immediately enamored with her, and he decides that he wants to ask her to come with him. Some of the history says that he proposed to her, and then some say that he ordered a raid on her brothel and took her, capturing her basically because she was probably owned by someone at that time. So it's like, what do you think is going to be the better? Like, will you marry me? And she's like, yes. And then she goes, or he stole her.
It reminds me of the opening of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is about, like this woman warrior queen gets stolen. Well, in either account, she does agree to join him on his ship, and she does accept a proposal from him. So they get married. She, though, on the grounds of being able to be married to her, she no longer wants to be subordinate. She wants to be an equal. So she agrees to marry him only if he agrees on some certain conditions. She makes him pledge to her that he will teach her the business of piracy. She gets equal partnership in the fleet leadership, as well as 50% of the admiral's share of anything attained. And he agrees to that. Wow, she's a shrewd businesswoman.
Yeah. Well, I think it was like he was so like into her and obsessed with her. He wanted to give her what she wanted to be able to marry her. He stays true to his word, and they started to run this kind of ever-growing fleet of pirate ships together. So together, when they first got married, they owned at the beginning 200 ships. After the marriage, they actually struck a coalition with a powerful Cantonese pirate force, and that turned the Red Flag Fleet into something between 1,700 to 1,800 ships. The combined efforts would result in a color-coded fleet of ships, and it was led by the Red Flag. So each of the ships was, their flags were different colors. So they had a fleet of the red flags, which was the two heads at the top. Then they had a black flag convoy, a white, a blue, a yellow, and a green.
Was there any significance to the colors?
So when they were doing like their tactical warfare, they would be able to deploy so they could see by color where different ships were going and like be able to attack in certain patterns.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's actually pretty fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it's really brilliant.
Shortly after the merge, they hit one of the largest and most successful raids in pirate history. They blockaded a Portuguese trading port at Macau on the south coast of China. The Portuguese sent a squadron to fend off the pirate attack as the Red Flag overpowered them. They called on the British Royal Navy to help, and the British had a ton of interest in that area at the time because it was a huge trading area.
Oh, yeah. The British always wanted to take everything.
They wanted everything. And actually, the British saw the size of this fleet and was like, no. They're like, you guys are on your own. And they declined to get involved. And they provided escorts for ships of their established allies. So they're like, we'll help our buds, but you guys are on your own. So 6 years into their marriage, Jing Yat was killed in the Tai Son Rebellion in Vietnam and died in 1807. So I looked a little bit into the Tai Son Rebellion, and it was raiding and fighting that was going against, there was like super rich dynasties
Mhm.
and they were oppressing and abusing their people. So there was like a ton of oppression, and the pirates would come in and raid and pillage, and they would actually take a lot of people who were in poverty and bring them onto the ships.
What an interesting turn of events.
Yeah. So with the support of the fleet's second in command, Chang Pao, she seizes the moment after her husband's death, and she establishes herself as the new leader of the Red Flag Fleet. So she starts off by kind of with a bang. She starts with a strict code of conduct, and she knows she's going to be contradicted because she's a woman. She knows that she's going to be up against a lot of people who want her seat. And she's now overseeing somewhere between 50,000 to 70,000 pirates.
Holy shit.
Yes. So this is what she set in line for them not to step out of line. So number one, the crew would account and register any and all money seized in raids before they could distribute it amongst themselves. Number two, any ship responsible for any capture of treasure would receive 20% of the bounty first. And then the remainder would go into a large collective fund that would go to the entire fleet. So almost like an incentive program.
Yeah. It's like commission.
Yeah. Anyone caught withholding bounty would face severe whippings. If any of the men raped any of the females captured in the raids, you were immediately beheaded.
Oh, yes. Hero for the people.
If you deserted your post, she would cut your ears off.
Oh,
Yeah.
really ruthless.
If you acted before she gave the order, you were beheaded or cannonballs were tied to your feet and you were thrown overboard.
Holy shit. She is not fucking around.
So some tried to not obey her rules and they were quickly beheaded. And she actually ordered, so the people that she had killed, the red flags of her ships, she had them re-dyed with the blood of the insubordinate people.
Whoa.
As a reminder.
Real intense.
Yeah, she's like, you know what you got to do? Use their blood. Dye the flags.
Oh, can you imagine watching that happen?
Yeah.
And then every day you're looking at that flag like, I guess I'll stay in line.
So she's got a firm hand over her fleet. She goes on to pillage the South China coast. She's raiding. She's taking over several towns. She's taxing countless others. It's said that she led extremely violent affronts, and it made them the most successful pirate fleet in the Eastern Hemisphere and one of the most successful fleets in the world. Amidst the raids, though, the war against China's government and the elite went on. She went on to sink 63 Chinese government vessels. And upon capturing government officials, she would often take the officials and nail them to the decks of her ships and torture them. Yeah.
God.
She was intense. So due to her severity, the British and Portuguese Navy wanted to stay out. They were like, they were afraid to lose ships. They were afraid to lose men. And because she was going up against Chinese government officials, they were afraid of losing their own lives because she wasn't afraid of anybody.
Clearly not.
Yeah. Interesting little side note I put in here is they mention this many times in the different areas that I got the research from. It was noted that she would allow the men to keep some of the captured women that they would, because they would capture people and they would sell them. And that she would allow some of the men to keep the women, but on one condition. The girl had a choice if she would stay or not. And the men actually had to pledge to remain faithful to this one woman, and they had to promise to take care of her. And by her orders, if they cheated on her or if they raped her, they would face execution. So I was wondering, like, what was the point? Like, you can have this partner, but this partner is also a slave, though. Like, does she really have a choice?
Yeah, I mean, what is the real option there? Like, oh, I'm going to marry this guy, or I'm going to get sold into sex slavery?
Yeah. But then also, like, if you get married, your conditions
are the same. It's basically sexual slavery.
I didn't understand. I was kind of like, but it mentioned it multiple
Applaud the
times.
effort, girl. Applaud the effort, but not quite there.
Not yet. So she demanded loyalty from her pirates. No excuses. Not just towards their relationships that she had them have with their women, but with it as a fleet as a whole. If a pirate ended up abandoning the fleet, she would send people out to seek them out and capture them, and she would cut their ears off. She's really big about that ear thing.
Yeah.
You need your ears. I mean,
do.
you do. So she ended up earning the name the Terror of the South China Sea. And her fleet crew had grown now to about 80,000.
That's so
And
many.
she had 2,000 pirate ships. She actually had over 2,000. So to kind of put this in perspective, this is larger than the notorious Blackbeard and Francis Drake's fleets put together.
Nice.
Blackbeard only had 300 pirates under his command.
Why does he get a bigger name?
We all know his name.
I mean, isn't Pirates of the Caribbean like based off of him?
I think so.
Why isn't it based off of her?
I don't know.
Maybe she comes up in Pirates of the Caribbean 25.
She actually does. She's in Pirates of the Caribbean 3.
Oh, I didn't make it that far.
I didn't either. I saw that and I was like, oh, I didn't say that. So the Chinese emperor at the time declares he's going to stop her, this so-called terror of the South China Sea. He's like, she's just a woman after all. So she actually doesn't run. She actually goes ahead of them and faces them directly on. She destroys most of his ships and she kidnaps most of the emperor's sailors and is like, you want a job? And they join her fleet.
Well, it was probably like, join us or be
or
dead.
Die.
And I don't know. I guess if you wanted your life, you'd just be like, I could be a pirate. It's like basically the same job, right?
So the captain of the Chinese Navy actually was so ashamed he took his own life rather than being captured by her. He was just
a bummer.
He was devastated. The Portuguese Navy tried to fight her and failed. The British Navy tried, but she captured some British soldiers and a very important official from the East India Trading Company. And the British had to turn around and give her ransom to get their people back.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's not good look for you.
No. So the emperor saw that there was no way to defeat this woman's fleet. They're too large, too fierce, too ferocious. So he decides to propose a truce. He says that anyone willing to return to the mainland, they would receive amnesty and they could return to civilian life. No punishment, no jail. So she says she'll accept, but on one condition. They don't have to give up any of their wealth that they accumulated while raiding. And the emperor agrees.
Well, then.
So it's like
they walked away millionaires or whatever.
She's sitting on a pile of treasure, literally. So, and two, at this time, she's like in her late 50s.
She's like, I'm tired of this game. I want to retire. Thanks for the offer, buddy.
Yeah, she actually had remarried because her first husband died. She had remarried a younger man named Cheng Ponsai. And the two had a son named Xiang Yulin, and they had a daughter, but the daughter's name has been lost throughout history. They decided to accept the amnesty, and they returned with their children to the Guangdong province. Posai died at sea a few years later after they accepted amnesty. It said he died at sea, so he went back on one last venture or something to fight, and he was killed. So with her wealth, she relocates to Macau. She joins the salt trade, which was booming back then. She opens up a gambling house, and she actually opens up her own brothel.
Okay, then.
Yeah. She owns and operates this business till her death until 1844. Around this time, she was probably about 69 to 72 years old. Actually, her descendants still live in the Macau area in China to this day. And after that, it's just, legend and lore, and after she dies. So where I got my information was AnnBonniePirate.com, Fascinate.com, AllThingsInteresting.com, and an article written by CountryStudies.us, the Tyson Rebellion, provided by the Library of Congress.
Nice. Yeah. I like your nasty lady.
I was a little on edge or not on edge, but just well, it's an impressive story. And you don't ever hear about this woman, so
we must have been on the same track because I also decided to do a criminal.
Really? We did it again. Air 5.
Yes, Air 5. So I think you're going to see a couple of similarities.
Let's do it. Yes.
I love
it when we do this.
I'm going to talk about Pearl Hart.
I don't know her.
Notorious criminal who committed one of the last recorded stagecoach robberies in the United States history.
Nice.
All right.
So we also got a robber.
Yes. Pearl Hart was actually born Pearl Taylor in 1871 in Lindsay, Ontario, in Canada. Her family was reportedly a well-to-do upper-middle-class family, and she actually was really well educated, went to some prominent boarding schools, so basically had the makings of being a well-adjusted regular person.
Yeah.
So when she was 16, she met an older man named Frederick Hart, Hart, and she was only 16. She's in school. She's kind of a little bit of a rebellious girl.
Mm-hmm.
And he is this gambling dude. And she's like, I like a bad boy.
Oh, no.
And reportedly, like, I mean, he was like an adult. It didn't ever explain what their age difference is, but very clearly it was inappropriate.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty scandalous affair. And when it was found out, the school was like, ah! And she got kicked out of school.
No.
And so she ran away with him and they eloped in the spring of 1889 when she was 17. And almost from the start, their marriage was predictably not great.
Really? Because when you marry a scoundrel, it doesn't work out?
It doesn't. I mean, you wouldn't know that when you're 17, though. He drank a lot and he had a super bad volatile temper.
Oh, no.
So he would often go gambling, play poker, lose real big, get very pissed, come home and take it out on her.
No.
And she was often the subject of violence from him. Frederick also, surprisingly, couldn't hold down a job very well.
What?
And so he would like go from job to job and they were often pretty poor, which is why it was surprising because one day he was like, we're going to go to Chicago.
Okay.
So he saved up enough money to take the two of them to go to Chicago to attend the World's Fair. And
they're just going on vacation?
No, the World's Fair was going to be this big deal and there was all of this stuff happening in preparation for it.
I get it. Okay.
And so they went down to be there before it started. And thinking that no matter what, they're going to find their fortunes at the World's Fair. So they get down to Chicago, they start living there, they're doing work there. He's doing like bartender work. She's doing odd jobs here and there. And that's how they're living for a little bit until 1893 when the World's Fair arrives. And then Frederick gets a job as a carnival barker. And Pearl also is doing just stuff for the World's Fair. Mm-hmm. But it allows her a lot of freedom to go to the shows. And so she goes to the Buffalo Bill Wild West show.
Oh, yeah.
Which we've heard about before.
Yeah.
That was, who was it that we talked about before who went to that and then decided she wanted to join the Buffalo Bill? Oh, it was the Maud.
Oh, yeah.
Maud, or the tattooer.
Yeah.
So she sees Annie Oakley and she's like starry-eyed, goo-goo-eyed, like, I want to be like her. I want to be this tough, gun-toting Wild West chick. And she also, I didn't even know this was a thing, there was a women's pavilion at the World's Fair, and inside of it were all of these speakers talking about women's issues.
Really?
Including some pretty prominent people who would go on to lead the women's suffrage movement. So she's at the same time seeing Annie Oakley up doing her sharpshooting stuff. She's seeing these other women talking about like how women should have the right to vote and be more equal. And watching these things, she is like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. She's very emboldened by everything she sees. And she decides to escape her husband and she boards a train headed for Trinidad, Colorado.
Ooh.
Some accounts say that she left with a man who was a piano player named Dan Bandman.
No, oh, no. My name's Mr. Bandman.
Yeah, I think that's a fake name. But there were other reports that didn't even mention him, so I don't know if he was real or not, but I like his name. So later on, when she was talking about this point in her life, she said this: I was only 22 years old. I was good looking, desperate, discouraged, and ready for anything that might come.
She's searching. She's looking for something.
So when she gets to Colorado, she initially starts working in a saloon as a singer. And she's so excited to get this new life started. So she's like, I'm going to work in a saloon. I'm going to live this Wild West dream. However, she realizes she's pregnant.
Oh, fuck.
That's what she said, too. She decided that she needed some help, and so she went back to her family in Ontario in Canada. After giving birth to a son, she was like, all right, see ya. She decided to head back west.
Child abandonment number 6 in our series.
Yeah. It's a common theme. So she left her child with her mom and went back to the West. And this time she went to Phoenix. Yet again, the idea of her life didn't match the reality that she was experiencing. She really wanted this glamorous, famous Wild West life, like where there was gambling and whatever and sharpshooting, and she was going to make a way for herself and she was going to make herself rich. But that was not what was happening. Instead, she was working as a cook and a singer and working in a laundromat.
Oh.
Some reports say at this time that she started to become involved in the seedier parts of society, where she drank a lot, smoked cigars, was involved with some other seedy things. She smoked pot. She also developed a love for morphine.
Oh.
And some...
I was like, drinking, marijuana, morphine. No.
No. The first opiate crisis. Some say that she actually opened and ran her own brothel.
Hey, look at us.
In 1895, Frederick Hart shows back up. And he begs her to get back together.
No.
I know, that's what she should have said. But she didn't. She got back together with him. And for like a year or two, everything was like, okay. I'm sure it wasn't great, but it was okay. But it wasn't long then before things began to fall apart. She gave birth to a second child, this one a girl. And Frederick was like, I don't want to support a family. This is boring.
Wow.
Yeah. So one night in 1898, the two got into a particularly heated argument, and Fred once again became violent. He actually knocked her unconscious.
Oh, jeez.
And then he left. Allegedly to join Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders in Cuba to fight the Spanish-American War.
Okay.
Yeah, which was real weird. So now she's destitute, has another baby. She's like, I'm going to go home again. So she goes back to Canada, and once more, she
drops
leaves
off a baby,
her child with her mother and goes back west.
My gosh, I would not. Oh, that would be a tough spot.
I know. You wouldn't want to say no because it's your grandchild.
It's your grandchild, because then where's the child going to go?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it should be raised with its sibling.
Yeah.
So when she returned back to Arizona, she found some work. Again, not glamorous. She was working at a mining camp as a cook, and it was pretty backbreaking work, and she was unhappy doing it. While working in the mining camp, she met a man named Joe Boot. Not his real name, but nobody knows what his real name was. And the two found each other to be like perfect matches. They had very similar hopes and dreams, and that weren't coming true, and they wanted to make them come true.
Ooh, she found an ally.
She did. They loved the stories of the Old West involving the big gangs at the time that would rob stagecoaches and stuff. In 1899, Pearl received a letter from her brother saying that her mother was very ill and that they needed money to pay her medical bills. And Pearl knew that she needed to make that money quick. Like, it couldn't be like, oh, I'm going to send you $1 a month from my menial job.
Yeah.
So they needed to get a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned too, like, she's not making anything, so it's not like she can give more money to her mother, because then she's going to starve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing really she could give. Not that this is the right answer, though. So Pearl and Joe hatched their first scheme. Pearl would flirt with a man and lure her into her room where Joe would be waiting. And he would knock the man unconscious, steal his money, and then they'd leave his body somewhere else to wake up.
Oh, that's a Shanghai, isn't it? Kind of.
Yeah, I think it is something like that. But this scheme wasn't very lucrative. It only got them like small amounts of money at a time. And they were like, no, we need to get rich. Like, not just like get a little bit of money.
Little pennies here and there, yeah.
So by this time in history, stagecoaches weren't very popular. They were not the primary mode of transportation. They had been replaced by trains. So most people in most small towns in the West had a train station, and that's how people traveled. But there were a couple of stages left. One of them was a stage line that ran between Florence and Globe in Arizona. And because stagecoaches were no longer the primary modes of travel, they were no longer as well armed. During the height of when stagecoaches were being used by people, every single coach had a shotgun rider whose whole job it was, to shoot people who tried to rob the stagecoach.
You have one job.
You have one job, kill people. But by 1899, that was no longer the case because they were so few and far between. And those people who used to rob stagecoaches were now trying to rob trains, which was harder, but still they would do it.
Yeah.
So to Pearl and Joe, this stagecoach line seemed a perfect target. It was an unarmed stagecoach traveling right by them, and it was surely going to be carrying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So on May 30th, 1899, the two of them rode to a watering hole where they knew the stagecoach would stop for rest for the horses. Pearl was carrying a .44 Colt, and Joe Boot had a .45 caliber 6-gun. When the stagecoach arrived, they jumped in front of it, guns pointed right at the driver. In preparation for the heist, Pearl had chopped all of her hair off and was wearing men's clothes and a really large white sombrero.
Styling.
The driver thought she was a boy, like a young boy.
Yeah.
Well, and she was actually really small. I watched a video that said that she was 5'3" and 100 pounds.
Oh, that's tiny. Yeah.
She was real small. So no wonder that he thought she was a little boy. So while Joe held up the driver, Pearl went passenger to passenger collecting all of their valuables and money. She ended up gathering about $431, which in today's money was about $13,000.
A lot.
And she also picked up 2 more firearms from passengers.
And those are worth money.
Mm-hmm. Pearl felt guilty knowing that she was taking all of their traveling money, so she actually gave $1 back to each passenger so they'd have something to eat when they arrived at their destination. After the robbery, the two of them took off. Because they were novice criminals, though, there were a few details that they hadn't considered.
Did they not cover their faces?
No. But that wouldn't have mattered.
Okay.
But one was that they thought that the driver would just keep going when they left. Like he would go to their destination, but that's not what he did. He unhitched one of the horses and rode and found the sheriff.
Shit.
Which cut down on their getaway time, obviously. Yeah. And much more problematic, though, is that they did not know the desert hills around where they were at. And so they just ended up getting lost and traveling in circles. And they couldn't actually get away.
This is a Monty Python skit now.
I know. So they built a bonfire, and fell asleep. And they woke up to a posse led by Sheriff Truman of Pinal County with guns pointed right in their faces.
Oh, no.
Actually, it was rumored that they were woke up by the barrels of the guns poking them in the ribs. So Pearl and Joe were arrested on June 5th, 1899. Joe was taken to the local jail in Florence, but it did not have facilities for women, so Pearl was actually sent to Tucson. The story of a female stagecoach robber was a big deal. It spread like wildfire. She was the first who's ever done it. And soon papers all over the country were covering the story on their front pages. Pearl became a media darling. Everybody wanted a picture of her. Everybody wanted an interview of her. And reporters were just falling all over themselves for her. They even gave her a nickname, which we've heard before for someone else. They called her the Bandit Queen.
That was Lozin, wasn't it?
No, Lozin was a bandit. Oh. No, that Indian woman,
yes!
Whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah,
though.
I can see her face.
Yes.
So we have our second Bandit Queen. And she was even featured on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine.
Really? She got her fame.
Yeah, she did. And local people in the community were equally fond of her and excited. So, she get lots of visitors.
Joe Boots over there with nobody.
Yeah, Joe Boots got his regular cell. One person even brought her a bobcat cub for a pet.
The fuck? It's probably, I love cats to a fault. I'd probably take that bobcat kitty and get my face tore off.
I just was like, what do you think she's in jail, motherfucker? What's she gonna do with that? So she was very charming, though, and very pretty, even though she had her hair chopped off and was wearing men's clothes. Mm-hmm. And they all took pictures of her in those, too. It was her look. She managed to charm some local men, and one night got one of them to help her with a scheme.
Oh, no.
So Pearl wasn't in a normal jail cell. with the cement or rock walls. Instead, she was kept in a room with lath and plaster. With the aid of a man who had a crush on her, it didn't say exactly how he helped her. I think he was waiting on the outside because she dismantled enough of the wall that she could crawl through it. And she escaped jail on October 12th, 1899 through an 18-inch hole.
Oh, jeez. She was tiny.
She was so small. Her time as a jailbird didn't last long, though, because she was recaptured 2 weeks later in Deming, New Mexico, and returned to Arizona by the police there, by the sheriff's office. So when the two went on trial, Pearl really turned on the charm. By this point, she's a media darling, and she's going to play it up as much as she can. She was demure and at times flirtatious, enrapturing everyone in attendance. The trial was reported on feverishly. People just wrote all kinds of great things about her. Pearl really played on the heartstrings of people because she was like teary and crying about her ailing mother.
Oh, this poor lost soul just trying to send money back home to her mama.
Yeah, she just said she was so desperate to help her poor mother that she didn't know what else to do. And it was really all Joe's fault anyway. It was his idea and she just went along with it.
Bitch.
I know. I mean, I don't really mind.
Sorry, boot.
Pearl also, she's so smart, remembered back to the Women's Pavilion at the World's Fair and decided that she would also play on the burgeoning feminist movement. So she said this: "I shall not consent to be tried under a law in which my sex had no voice in making."
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. Basically, she was like, if I can't vote, how can I be subjected
Held
to the law?
Yeah.
I'm not a citizen, which was smart.
Very.
And then that meant the women's suffrage movement started defending her. And they were writing supportive missives in all of these women's magazines about how everybody should support Pearl Hart. So it was no surprise then that she was found not guilty.
Well, yeah.
She was acquitted of all charges by a jury of all men. And the judge was fucking furious.
Oh, no.
Because one, she had confessed. She didn't deny doing it.
Yeah.
2, she had the one passenger's gun on her when she was arrested. 3, every one of the passengers identified her as who was there. And the jury was like, we don't care. And the judge was like, no, this is not how this is happening. And he demanded that the two of them get rearrested and put on trial again for a different crime because he can't, double jeopardy.
I was going to say, yeah, you can't do that.
So this time they were charged with tampering with U.S. mail, which is a federal offense.
What did they tamper with? Who knows?
I don't know. There must have been a package on the damn thing.
Okay.
And another thing said that they got in trouble for a weapons violation because they stole those firearms.
Okay.
But I think that the U.S. mail one was actually more accurate because the other one would have been a misdemeanor. And tampering with U.S. mail is a felony, or at least I think it was. And so they ended up being found guilty this time. Joe was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
Yikes.
While Pearl was sentenced to 5.
That's a big difference.
It still worked. So both of them were sent to the notorious Yuma Territorial Prison where all of the bad Wild West folks were.
Mm-hmm.
And Pearl was still a media darling. People still wanted to read about her and look at pictures of her. And so the warden of the prison was like, bring it on. I love this. And he even provided her with a special cell. So the Yuma prison was outdoors, I guess, because people talked about how it was the worst place you could be sent because it was outdoors and in the Arizona heat. It would be well into the hundreds in the summertime.
No, thank you.
Yeah, terrible. But she got a special cell. It was bigger than most people's cells. It was 8 feet by 10 feet, really big. And it also included a small yard where she could entertain guests.
Oh my gosh.
So photographers and reporters and other visitors often came to see her. And Pearl used her position as the only female at an all-male prison to her advantage. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what to mean, know what to mean. And she only ended up serving 18 months of her 5-year sentence
Wow.
before she was abruptly pardoned by the governor of the Arizona Territory and let out on the condition that she leave Arizona immediately.
She got somebody in trouble, didn't she?
So there are conflicting reports on that about why the governor would do that, but the speculation was that Pearl had become pregnant while in prison and that would be a scandal of epic proportion that if the media found out would be a big deal. So that's one thing. And there was one report I read where it said that the governor actually did confirm that later on, that is what happened, that, she had become pregnant in prison. That's why he was like, get the hell out of here.
Oh, okay.
But there's no evidence that Pearl ever had a third child.
Did she lie?
Perhaps. So either the rumor is not true at all and she got let out for some other reason, or Pearl played the man in charge to her advantage and faked a pregnancy to get out of jail.
Oh my gosh. That kind of sounds a little, yeah.
That sounds like something
sounds
she
like
might
she
do.
would do.
So once out of prison, Pearl went to Kansas City where her sister lived, and her sister was also capitalizing on Pearl's fame because she wrote a play about Pearl and her daring stagecoach robbery and prison escape. And she wanted Pearl to play herself on stage. And so she did. It was called The Arizona Bandit, and it didn't run for very long before it closed. After this, Pearl's life becomes a little fuzzy. We do know that she briefly joined the Buffalo Bills Wild West show, the very thing that led her out to the West, which is kind of fitting, full circle. It's believed that she also opened a cigar shop in Kansas City where she got in trouble with the law for receiving stolen property, and she was later acquitted of the charge.
That's like Pancho Barnes bringing up alcohol from Mexico.
Yes. After this, her life sort of fades away. Some believe she died in Kansas City in 1925. Others say that she returned to Arizona and visited the very cell that she'd been held in 20 years before. Still others believe she went to San Francisco and died there in 1952. The most common story, though, is that she married a rancher in Dripping Springs, Arizona, and went by the name Pearl Bywater. And the place was very close to Globe, Arizona, where she had done the robbery.
Okay.
So people thought it was like ballsy because she wasn't supposed to be there, right? The governor said, get the hell out of Arizona. And so she went by this other name and lived very close to where she had lived this notorious life. And in this version of the story, she lives well into her 80s and is buried in an unmarked grave. Pearl Hart became a legend and a pop culture figure that long outlasted her life, which in the end was the kind of glory that she'd been seeking all along.
She got her fame.
There was even a band, I think it's called Volbeat, who wrote a song called Pearl Hart.
Really?
In the last couple of years.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I got my information from Wikipedia, Legends of America, The Annals of Crime, History, American Cowboy Magazine, Time, and Cowgirl Magazine.
That's interesting that you said she pops up in pop culture, because also Ching Shih, she pops up a lot in anime, and in I think she popped up in some, I want to say, are they called manga?
Yeah, manga.
Comics, where she's like a spirit that guards the underworld and stuff like that, and that's been in the recent past 10 years. Then she made that appearance in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, just kind of, I think, just sprinkled in there, but people don't quite know who she is.
Yeah, I don't know the full story.
Yeah.
I think that's both of ours.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the things I read about was that there was one other female stagecoach robber, but her story is even more fuzzy, and that some people think she never actually existed. And she wasn't the last stagecoach robber. A lot of people think she was. She wasn't. There was one other guy. There was a guy who did one after her. But she was basically she's the last one who got any fame. But that guy actually ended up with $3,000 in gold.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Tidy.
Oh, you know what? A funny little tidbit?
Yeah.
So Joe Boot,
Oh, yeah.
her partner in crime. He was at the Human Territorial Prison too, but he got promoted to become a trustee, which was like sort of like you got to be in charge of other prisoners.
Okay.
This is a really weird thing that they had. And he was on a work party, like going out and doing work. You know how like they have like street crews and stuff now? So similar to that. And he just fucking walked off the job, escaped to Mexico, and lived happily ever after.
Oh, wow.
And no one ever heard from him again.
Well, good for Joe. He got out.
Good for Joe. Joe didn't serve much time either. In fact, she ended up serving more time because she served 18 months and he only served 12.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Anyway, I had a lot of fun telling that story.
I did too. Yeah. I like that we both had some women that kind of crossed some lines.
I think it's really funny that we were both like, let's do
criminals.
That was fun.
That was really fun.
Good job.
You too.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I hope you join us next week. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at IDKher_podcast. And you can also email us if you'd like to suggest anything or ask questions or add anything. Oh, did you see, by the way, that Patty McGee followed us on Instagram?
What? I did not.
So everybody, now you should go look on our Instagram because we have tagged Patty McGee in our Instagram post.
That's awesome. I didn't see that.
She liked it. And so if you know anybody who's a descendant of anybody we've talked about or is any way related, please get in touch with us. We love to hear that kind of stuff. Our email address is idon'tknowherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next time. Thank you to our editor,
Lucas McIntyre. Thank you so much.
And also we want to thank
the band L7
and Jennifer Finch for providing our theme music. See you next week, everybody.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. Keep your noses clean.